的身体，为此发挥其一切众生心赞妙法轮教导我们如何了生脱死离苦得乐殊真无生。Will the Sangha bring great virtue out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings? Present the wonderful Dhamma will to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and emperor and death, and quickly realize none but.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Nammo sadanto suchedoye olahudi sammyao sanputoshi. Wu shang shen shen wei miao fa, bai qian wan jie nan zhao yu. Wo jin jian wen de shou chi, yuan jie ru lai zhen shi yi. Together, supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Jin Chuan Shi, Amitofo. Would you mind going up and getting those two orange notebooks that are right by my computer? Bring it down. Venerable Master, Dhamma friends, good evening. Welcome to our Sutra lecture tonight. This is we're on the 8th, I believe, the 8th of September here in Berkeley, California. And it's time for the Avatamsaka Sutra's 8th ground, 8th stage lecture from the 10 grounds chapter, the Dashabhumi, 10 stages chapter. So please join in if that's what you've come to hear. We've got a Chinese translation happening in Australia, coming to people who are behind the firewall on yy.com. And we've got a Vietnamese translation here in the here in the upstairs, in the balcony. Should anybody want to hear fresh, live Vietnamese translation, we're ready for you. The rest of you who are listening in English, if you would please look at the front cover of your text here, and we're going to chant the invocation of the Flower Garland Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and we're going to do it with musical accompaniment. We used to do it with the percussion of the Chinese Dharma instruments, but I think it gains something when we lodge it, when we immerse it in the culture of the West. So we'll do that this way. Okay, you all familiar with that melody? It's the same one that we do with the Tok Tok of the Wooden Fish, but it's done with strings instead. Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Wei Fo Pu Sa Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Ji One more time. Namo Dabang Guangbo YNG YNI Wei Obusa. Now, last week, our sutra lecture was delivered by Master Jinfo with Jin Chuanshi translating, and I was in Singapore, even though I wasn't here in the Buddha Hall at the Berkeley Monastery explaining the Flower Garland Sutra. I was in Singapore explaining the Flower Garland Sutra. 3 nights in a row, telling stories from the Avatamsaka Sutra, which was great fun and well received, and many people had a new sense of what the Flower Garland Sutra might contain, and I got some perspectives on the process of explaining sutras that I want to share with everybody, because it's not what you expect. And I was thinking back to all of us here in Berkeley and how the fact that we do this every week, we open up the Flower Garland Sutra and talk about the Bodhisattva. We go, yeah, it was an okay lecture. The last week was better, but we don't blink. And there are other places in the world where people hear sutra, and the first thought in their mind is, 不懂, 听不懂, 看不懂, 不懂. Right? The first thought is, I don't understand it. I can't understand it. I can't read it. You can't understand it. Because why? That's what they've been taught. And so we did exactly what we do here every week there to 700 people, 3 nights, 2,100 people. And by the 3rd night, people were kind of willing to really? But the first night it was very frustrating, because reciting the sutra text, people said, I can't read the Chinese. Well, one thing, we put traditional characters on the screen. I had forgotten that Singapore uses simplified characters. So that didn't help. That put an extra obstacle in the way of understanding. But all the same, there is a strong traditional cultural bias against understanding not just the Avatamsaka, but Buddhist sutras in general. These are not unintelligent folks. These are bright Buddhists who have deep faith in Amitabha and the Pure Land, but they are not in the habit of having people open the sutras and say, you can understand this, and then opening it up. So by the 3rd night, things had turned around, which is quite interesting. That it was like, oh yeah, gee whiz, I had no idea. We kind of like that. So priming the pump and planting the seeds for a future visit, where I think we'll start at a different place, at least where people are willing to think that it's possible that they can understand that. So back to us here in Berkeley, where we go like, yeah, that's really hard to understand, but it's kind of cool. I kind of get it. What about this? We're open to the idea that a 2,500-year-old book can actually talk to us, and if I don't understand, maybe it's my problem. It's not the sutra. It's not that the sutra can't be understood. It's that maybe this is hard, and I need to step up my game. You know, that's a very different attitude. And it began with Master Hsuan Hua, clearly, with Shifu's exhortation to open the text, let the Buddha's voice be heard. You can handle it. The Buddha does speak English. And not only that, there's a level of information and wisdom here that's going to crack something open inside, and you're going to feel the nutrition flowing into your Dharma body's wisdom circuitry. You're going to feel it. It's there, you know. So it's interesting to see. Just, we're used to it, they're not. Once you're used to it, it's like, oh, that's kind of neat. I miss this every week when I don't get it. You know, if I don't come, I miss it. Who would think? You know. So it's fun. I'll tell you more about that in a bit. Page 50, page 51. Last section of the 8th stage. 第八地最后的最后. Now, you know, everything that I just said, it could have been because I was speaking Chinese. Maybe that was the problem to begin with. Maybe it had nothing to do with the sutra. It was just the fact that, God, that round-eyed guy, he's like, we'll humor him. Okay? Maybe wait for the songs. We'll wait for the songs. We'll humor his Chinese until the music. And so it could be that. Okay, are we ready? At top of the page, here we go. I'll give you a line, you give it back. 此地功德无边际 千万亿劫说不尽 复益供佛善益名 如往顶上庄严具 Together, look with me, ready? The meritorious virtues of this stage are limitless. In billions of kalpas, you could not fully describe them. The light shed from the benefits of his offerings to Buddhas are like the ornaments upon the crown of a king. We're talking about a bodhisattva on the 8th stage. This is the last part where it's saying the benefits of you cultivating it. What happens if you cultivate the 8th stage? This is the stuff that comes to you. And as they say, it's not a question of if, it's just a question of when. So sooner or later, as we progress towards Buddhahood, this is what happens to us at this phase of our education. The meritorious virtues of the stage are limitless. The qualities that come are many. It benefits the whole person. In a long time, billions of kalpas, if you put that out in zeros, it would be a lot of zeros. Couldn't finish. That's a typical Avatamsaka statement. There's no way to describe it, in other words. Words fail you. Say it in 3 sentences. Words fail you. 2 words. Words fail, right? You couldn't finish describing it in billions of kalpas, how much goodness is here. Words fail. The light shed from the benefits of his offerings to Buddhas. So the Bodhisattva gives a lot. He is a giving person here. What are they like? Well, it's the light that comes from the giving this Bodhisattva has done. It's like the shining lights off a king's crown. Anybody seen a king's crown? People who went to the Louvre with us? People who went, there were crown jewels. Phil, when we went to Florence, we went to the Uffizi Palace, there were crown jewels there, you remember? No, Italy, in Florence. Didn't go, you weren't in that trip. Okay. Were you with us in Poland? In Florence? Who went to Florence? Nobody? Okay. Roberto, are there, okay.
No, I see the crown jewels in England.
In England, okay.
And that was
They shine light, right? They
diamonds like melons.
diamonds like popcorn. Yeah. Okay. So we don't happen to have kings. What do we have? The Koch brothers. Wash my mouth out with soap. We have billionaires. We don't have kings. Where there are kings, there are crown jewels. England's a place. Spain, oh my goodness. Go to Barcelona, climb up to the top of the serrated mountain, Montserrat. And it's a Benedictine monastery, but they've got a museum there. It's a little museum. And you go down, they're on the mountaintop, you go down the steps and around the corner, and they've got crown jewels there from the Spanish kings who wanted to use their own jewels as an offering to the Black Madonna, to the Blessed Virgin, to Mother Mary. Valerie, you're nodding. Do you remember? Did you go down? You weren't on that trip. Oh, okay. So go to the monastery, go to the Montserrat, go to the museum, and look at the crown jewels, and you'll understand this sentence. Because it's what a king would wear. And that's what kings do, I guess. It's part of their blessings of being a king. Incredible. First of all, the gold of the body of it is... I had a funny response to seeing gold. It was softer and more elemental than I thought. Gold is, when it's, there's a big chunk of it made into this round fillet that goes around, and it was raw. It wasn't like antiseptically clean and cool. It was, you could see how the goldsmith worked it. And then on top of that, you think of all the precious stones you can imagine. Rubies, emeralds, topaz, and diamonds, and sapphires, and pearls, just like that, and red velvet. And it, on one hand, if you could see why only a king's head could wear it. If you put it on, Uncle John, it would look wrong. It's too big a hat for Tom to wear, It's got to be King Prudence the 19th or the Pope or whoever it is, who's somehow, you've got to have enough light below to support that much light above. Really? And these, I was very impressed with Montserrat's crown jewels. If you go to England, as Phil mentioned, you go to see the crown jewels from the kings of England, same experience. If you go to the Louvre, they have French royalties, jewels there. And if you go to the Forbidden City in Beijing, the robes look that way. Things sewn into the robes of the emperor, the Tians, the son, the child of heaven. So, you get the idea, right? The light shed from the benefits of the offerings that this bodhisattva on the 8th stage has made are like the ornaments on ornaments on the crown of a king. Splendid, priceless, can't find them in the market, couldn't sell them, belong better on the head of a king. Okay. 菩萨住次第八地，多作梵网千界主，演说三圣无有穷，此光普照除众惑. Most often a bodhisattva abiding on this 8th stage will appear as a Brahma king, a lord of a thousandfold realm. He never stops speaking of the three vehicles. The illumination from his light of kindness dispels all delusions. So, if you've been following throughout the lectures on the 10 stages, you know that every stage has this boilerplate passage in it, which is to say, it describes what goes on with a bodhisattva cultivating to this level. And they are reborn. And they're reborn higher successively through the heavens. This one, the 8th stage, he's reborn as a king in what's called the form realm, also known as the Brahma heaven, Fanwang, the Brahma heavens. And interesting, right? Here, this is like, it makes it a little more real when the sutra describes the rebirth of somebody cultivating at this level. It's your blessings bring you here by default, sort of, right? So, What's a Brahma king? If you go to the heaven realm described by the Buddha, there's the form realm, there's the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm. The desire realm has 6 heavens. The form realm has 28. The formless realm has 4. Just it's the way it is. I don't know why 4, 28, 4. But the first to the 28th of the form realm heavens is called the Brahma heaven. Brahma meaning pure. And Devas born there have no desire. Their desire has been transformed, recycled, transmuted, and so they're at another level completely. They're beyond the realm of Mara. Check that out. Where does the demon king teach and live and run havoc, right? It's in the desire realm. Heavens leveled 1 to 6. Once you end desire in your person, in your body, in your mind, you too can go to the Brahma realm. Until you have entered desire, you don't get to the Brahma realm, to the form realm. Now, let's make it a little more real. Master Hua would say, oh, the dhyanas. First, second, third, fourth dhyana, meditation stages. He would say, anybody can. You too. You can get there. Cultivate to the... It's not that hard, he would say. All you have to do is tame your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, so they don't move in front of sights, sounds, smells, tastes, sensations of touch, and dharmas. And when you can do that, your body, your mind, and your spirit kind of slip into this new octave of harmony. Before it was going, now it's going like that. You change your 4-cylinder Volkswagen 36 horsepower VW Bug for a 12-cylinder Ferrari. And before it was, now it's like that. And body and mind are in harmony, but vibrating at a whole new level. And you can enter the dhyanas. And Master Hua would go on, if the situation was right, he would say, okay, now in the first dhyana, you know what happens? Your lungs stop breathing. And your pores open up and you breathe horizontally. You know what happens at the second dhyana? Your heart stops beating. And then the third dhyana, your coarse thoughts stop. And the fourth dhyana, subtle thoughts stop. That's the Brahma realm. It's the Brahma heavens. The dhyanas that we can practice and attain in meditation are an entry into the form realm, the Brahma heavens, which says, if you're following all these ideas, that when you enter the dhyanas, it's because your desires have transmuted. They don't go anywhere, they just smelt. It's like you start out with flour and salt and a bit of sweetener and some yeast and some water, and you mix it all just right, and what do you get when you add heat? You have bread. Where'd the flour go? Well, the flour's in there, but now it's bread. Where did the yeast go? The yeast is in there, but now it's bread, right? It's become something different. Desire becomes something different. It becomes wisdom. And you can, it's like, so thinking about that, what does it take to enter the dhyanas? Suppose we said, I'm going to take it out of the sutra and put it into my body. What am I going to do? Well, start with your eyes, then add your ears, and your nose, your tongue, your body, and hardest of all is your mind. And do what? Do you hold them tight so they don't move? No, that won't succeed. What do? You, illogically, what do you say? It's not obvious what you would do. You let them go so that they come home and don't attach to beautiful sights with the eyes, sounds you hate and run from with your ears, nose and tongue, and touches with the body. You become completely immersed in the world around you. You don't chase after it to get it. You don't tighten to reject it. You simply stop attaching to it. 因无所住而生其心. You have thoughts that stop nowhere. You have smells that stop nowhere, and eyes and ears. They just, the sounds come in, the ears go, I know that sound really well. Gone. Oh, look at that. That's so-and-so. Gone. Instead of, oh, there she is. I can't wait to talk to her. Or, oh no, there's that creep. Let me get away from, right? You don't have that reaction to inputs of the senses, and it settles. And your six senses transform. Desire that is in there chasing or running from doesn't stop the flow of inside and outside. And amazingly, you can enter this state called the dhyanas. And it's, I'll do this. Here we go. A little louder. Here we go. Yeah, your senses operate at that pitch. And before, it was something more like, like that. Everything that came, you retained it. And when you hit the form realm, a desire ends, you stop picking and choosing. It's so mellow, right? And before you know it, something transforms in the body, and your breathing doesn't have to operate the way it did before, and you don't die. And then in the second dhyana, your heartbeat. Then in the third dhyana, your soul thought. So that's the idea of dhyanas connected to desires, connected to rebirth in the Brahma realm. Okay, if this was a jigsaw puzzle, I'd be pulling pieces from the left and from the right and sticking them all together. And we've got the Brahma heaven, we've got desire, the six senses, and we've got the dhyanas, the first, second, and third, and fourth stage of meditation. Okay, but that's not the whole story of the Brahma realm. There's also, inside those 28 different levels of heaven, there are 5 which are called the heavens of no further return, 无不还天, which is a place where arhats go as they're finishing up their rebirths, ready to attain nirvana. Some are 7 times reborn, some are once returners, some are never returners. 4th stage, arhats they're done. It's their last rebirth. There is some talk that the Buddha, on the night of his enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, actually entered the dhyanas, the 3rd dhyanas, and retained Buddhahood from the 3rd dhyana. But that's just a factoid. Okay, so I don't know, this is kind of running through. Connie, you need a microphone there.
Where you were talking about returning, reducing desires by returning in the senses. And I was wondering if you can repeat that part.
You're wondering if
you could repeat that part or go thoroughly into like how to reduce desires by turning around our senses. But
so
it's okay, I can rewatch it too.
I didn't get that last thing you said.
No.
Okay, so the question is, how do you end desire? Is that
Reduce desires?
Reduce desires. One thing is look at diet. Another thing is look at what do you do with your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind all day? Because that's going to be there when you sit still. Mostly we're talking about Chan meditation as the ground from which you enter the dhyanas and thereby can be reborn in the heavens. Mostly it's stillness. Now it's possible, I suppose, to enter the dhyanas in movement, but you have to have some real stillness. Okay, what do I do with my eyes during the day? How many screens do I look at? What do I put in front of my eyes? Somebody was telling me there was a big complaint. When was it? Was it the family camp? Somebody was saying Instagram is destroying their daughter's peace of mind and their daughter's classmates' peace of mind because Instagram stars show an unrealistic lifestyle. And the kids, this woman was saying, try to imitate it and are frustrated if their lives are not like the fantasy illusions being cast by Instagram stars, IG stars, who, never have a bad hair day, kind of thing. And so, if I have on my Instagram feed like 30 different pop stars who never wear the same outfit twice, kind of thing, then that's in front of my eyes. And in my mind, I'm going to look at my clothes and go, same old piece of crap, same old threads, and I won't be satisfied. So, there's an example. Maybe that's not a real example. What do you do with your ears all day? If your ears hear nothing but profanity, it's going to be hard to enter dhyana, because those are sounds the intent of which is to shock and to hurt. It's almost like a slap with the hand when you shout the F word at somebody. So the aggressive intent behind four-letter words and profanity is disturbing through the ear to the mind. It's going to be harder to enter dhyana. One that's really funny, I said diet. How much spice do you need on your food before you can taste it? I come from the cold northern Atlantic islands. We don't do spice much, right? There wasn't any. Mostly salt and pepper. That's it, And so I have like zero tolerance for Pakistani peppers and stuff. Even, Italian food I can't handle. How much the more can I not stand Hunan? Went to Hunan and to Sichuan, and the monks there just had great fun with me, spicing up my noodles till I reacted. My poor body just couldn't handle Sichuan seasoning. So I know there are guys who, when they taste a bowl of our vegetarian pho, the first thing they do is they look for the hot sauce. And they're polite about it because they're in the monastery. They know they're not at home, but they look for it. You can see it. They go, oh. Unhappy. It doesn't taste like anything. It's not the way they do it at home, which is adding hot sauce. So if your tongue requires a certain amount of stimulation before it's content, you'll have to mellow that one out. Instead of peaking like this for flavor experience, peaking and valley, it's got to be like this. And instead of asking me how much you reduce them, the answer is inner dhyana. If you can ru ding as you meditate, you're there. If you can't, chances are, not always, chances are, the fault, the thing in the way, is your senses are still peaking higher. When they're really flat, it's easy. Master Hua would say, you want every dharma to be pingdang. Every single aspect of your life should be pretty much the same, which sounds bland, but yeah, it's bland like you never done bland. Why? Because you're not living for experiences of the senses. You're living for that ability to integrate your body, mind, and spirit when you meditate. Sorry. So once you get the flavor of dhyana, the world can't compare. And you don't reach for stimulation anymore. Because there's this sense of, boy, I didn't say that part, which is the dhyanas are pleasurable to the extreme. That's why they're called Li Sheng Xi Le Di. The stage of happiness beyond which ordinary people can experience with their own senses. Better than any food you ever ate, any drink you ever drank, any sensation that you ever experienced. Better. And it's all yours. It's entirely yours. No batteries needed. You don't plug it in. You don't, tune it up. So the dhyanas, once somebody really can ease into this flow that's no longer peaking and valleying, right? It generates its own, my goodness. That's why these monks and nuns who can enter the dhyanas don't leave. Somebody would sit there and you think, my God, they've been there for a day, Why? It's blissful. What's the second stage called? The Ding Sheng Xi Le Di, the stage of happiness where samadhi arises. It's a deeper level of stillness and purity. So the third one is called Li Xi Miao Le Di, the stage of wonderful, wondrous bliss beyond happiness. Obviously, we're reaching for words to describe what that third dhyana is like. And the last one is She Nian Qing Jing Di, the stage of purity where thoughts go away. So this is, and the thing is, Master Hua, when you talk to him, when he would talk, you just knew that he was talking from his experience of going in and out of these dhyanas. And he was trying his best to encourage, coach, tease, hint his disciples into getting there, into working through it. And the funny thing is, there's no shortcut. It's what have you done with your senses recently? All it takes to destroy all of that hard work towards the dhyanas is one good, hot argument with a loved one. Just really let it go and blast somebody, and dhyana is postponed for weeks because you've... It's a very delicate, gentle, do-it-yourself world of the dhyanas, and you have to really, really, really let go. And before you can get there, you've been through pain. And you explore, you become good friends with pain in your knees, because that's a prequel. That's a prerequisite for entering the dhyanas, is you have to have kind of opened new pathways of energy in your body. And it integrates. The real word that you feel is integrates. And another word that comes into play is smelts. You feel like you're smelting. If you've ever done soldering on a radio circuit board, or if you ever repaired your own model trains or something, you take the solder in this hand and the soldering iron in this hand, you put it down there, press the button on the soldering iron, and it gets really hot, and this is hard metal, all right? And it melts, it drips, and you've made a new circuit. You had to melt the metal. You smelted the solder, and now you've got a connection that'll hold electricity. It really feels like your knees, your back, your eyebrows, your cheekbones, your earlobes are being smelted to this place where it's like, the lights just came on. It doesn't hurt at all because you've reforged. Not new circuits. It feels like old circuitry that was corroded. You've now reforged it. And you can take a lot of heat now without any sense of discomfort. And boy, when you do that, there's this, yeah, this is nice. This is why monks and nuns would do something that nobody else in the world wants to do, which is give up everything that the world says is good to have. Good times, right? Party! Man, parties? No, not now. So, why would a young person, Connie, find this it's appealing, but it's kind of like, it's a little bit hard to imagine, because when you're younger, you want to experience the world. You want to, to have somebody say, oh, you should calm down, make all your senses even, level and equal. That's pretty much somebody who's been there, done that, tasted it, got the t-shirt, not interested anymore. If I, as a college student, I was not ready for the dhyanas, So, anyway, for a young person that is, that's great. I'm not discouraging anybody, but I'm saying it's the Shifu at this point in talking about the dhyanas would say, 若人欲不死，先做活死人. If somebody wants to really get beyond death, first they have to become a living dead person. You have to die while you're alive. Because somebody who has calmed their senses, who is really pingdung like this, looks like a dead man, woman. It's kind of like, oh, you're not interested in going bowling? Why not? Bowling's fun. No thanks. I want to go home and meditate. So, like that. Okay, that's kind of it. Yes, Sandy?
So you mentioned Pure Land, and you've taken us the hard work of you need to go through to get into dhyanas to get into the Brahma heaven. So Pure Land is a heaven, Brahma heaven's a heaven, so why would somebody go through all that work when they can just recite the Buddha's name?
When they
can just recite the Buddha's name. So is Pure Land...
I still didn't get it. When they can what?
So why would somebody go through this process of work, of battling their senses, when they can just recite the Buddha's name and go to Pure Land? So is Pure Land marketed as a shortcut, Buddhist shortcut? In Asia, this is back to the beginning, like you took us like, why aren't people, they're kind of standoffish with sutras. So do you get the sense, or maybe people feel, yeah, why? You could just recite the Buddha's name. And Shifu taught all 5 schools, so why did he bother teaching all 5 schools when you could just recite the Buddha's name and skip it all and just eat whatever you want, do whatever you want, and just...
Yeah, okay, that's a question that has been asked for a very long time. And it's only in the Mahayana that one would ask this question, I might add. So why would somebody go through all this hard work, for example, facing pain in the knees, when you could recite the Buddha's name and go? And most people didn't go through all the trouble. Most people just recited the Buddha's name. And that's why it's become the most popular method. So the first level promotion of the Pure Land, first level description of the Pure Land says, Sangan Pubei, right? The ordinary, blunt folks who aren't particularly philosophical or even very aware, if they recite the Buddha's name, they can go. People who are devoted cultivators, who are, family members, householders, if they recite the Buddha's name, they're smart, but they're too busy to really cultivate. But if they recite the Buddha's name, they can go to the Pure Land. Extraordinarily gifted cultivators who are sharp in their faculties and they work really hard, when they recite the Buddha's name, they go to the Pure Land. So these 9 grades of lotuses receive the 3 levels of cultivators, they say. So this great democratization, right, this great equalization of access to the Pure Land was really, really appealing. And on the face of it, the basic idea is that there suffering ends. Here, it's tough. So that's what people say when they're trying to get others interested in the Pure Land. Well, it worked. So ever since about the Tang dynasty, like the 9th, 10th century, people have been reciting the Buddha's name more than anything else. Wowee, I just faced it in Singapore. Ho ho. People really, really like Amitabha and the Pure Land. Now, take that, all those advertisements, all those reasons why we should recite the Buddha's name, and take them here on Thursday night. to the East Bay Insight Meditation Group, which is about roughly 80 Westerners, and they come to meditate. If you tell them about Pure Land and show them a picture of Amitabha, there he is, Omitofo, show them a picture of Amitabha and describe the Pure Land, they go, looks kind of like the Lutheran God. I don't think so. You know, I want to practice Buddhism, meditation. So no matter how you describe it, it's a different potential, a different affinity. Now, there was a time in China before Amitabha became so popular. And we're now in the time in America before anybody wants the Pure Land. So Master Hua came to America carrying all those tools, all those expedients in his kit bag, medicine bag, and he gave us each of them, including, the 5 schools. Mahayana has these 5 schools. Theravada, not so. Tibetan, different, right? So he said, I'm a Chan monk, and you Americans want to meditate. Ron Epstein, who met Master Hua on the street in the Fillmore district in 1964 or something, 65, meditated with Master Hua. Shifu would open his door at 7 o'clock in the morning in the apartment where he was the landlord, invite people to come in every day to meditate. That's what he did. He didn't try to explain the Pure Land. Later on, when the Shurangama session had concluded, Shifu started teaching about the Pure Land. And then he lectured on sutras all the time. He taught us mantras and the Vinaya. So all 5 schools. So he did both. And okay, let's go to China now, or let's just say Taiwan. And there are places in Taiwan who will, I remember here, we had our Guoguan, who was our best chef at Taipei Fajie. He's an old gentleman, Taiwanese, real devout practitioner, great chef. And he came once to the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery on his way up to city of 10,000 Buddhas. And he peeked in the kitchen, and we had a round table in there, or Thursday night round table. And everybody was waiting for the round table to start and meditating. And there were about 12 people, 6 girls, 6 boys. And Guoguan pulled me aside and he said, what do you got girls in there meditating for? And I said, why not? He said, girls aren't supposed to meditate. Don't you know that? Too much trouble. He said, I wouldn't let them meditate. Women shouldn't do that. I'm like, oh boy, have you got a lot to learn about America. Nope, that particular cultural attitude is not going to fly in the 21st century in America. So there is that attitude in Taiwan. At the same time, in Taiwan, there are people who are totally devoted to meditation. But by and large, people want and expect to practice the Pure Land. Namo Amitofo. So if you go to the Amitabha people in Taiwan and say, why aren't you meditating? You know what they say? They say, 100 people practice meditation. You might not even find one who succeeds, who gets anywhere close to the dhyanas. If 100 people recite the Buddha's name, however, 100 people will go to the Pure Land. So the difference between the two is called zi li and ta li. Meditation is your own effort, zi li. You thought it through. You tamed your senses. You sat there through the pain until your body just hummed. Right? You did it yourself. You understood. And you threaded through all of the states, the 50 skandha demon states of the Shurangama Sutra. Okay? That's Tzu-li. What is Ta-li? There's a lot of people who don't want to do that. They get stuck in their meditation. They don't have a good teacher who can laugh them out of states that happen. You remember, Leo is not here tonight. Our Dharma friend Leo used to come to all our meditations. And she was rigorous. She really did it, worked hard. But she had this thing about states of being. And she would go, Lasher, my body was really, 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 really hot. And if I was meditating like this back home, I probably would have just like put on my bathing suit and meditated because I was just so hot. You go, it's a state, Leo, don't worry about it. Okay. Then next week, Lasher, my body's really, really cold. I put 3 blankets on. Did you notice? Yeah, we noticed. Right in the middle of the meditation. Yeah, I was really cold. I was freezing. My teeth were chattering. That's just a state, Leo. Don't get attached to it. Keep working. Okay. Next week, Vasher, my body was tiny. I felt like I vanished into a mote of dust. I just wasn't even there on my cushion. Did you notice? Yeah, we noticed you. And it's just a state, Leo. Don't get attached to it. She'd meditate hard. Hey, my body filled empty space. It just swelled right up. I just felt like I was filling every crack of the Buddha hall and out beyond. You know? And so Liu had state after state after state. And it was a result of her actually meditating. She went through all this stuff. And Master Hua would say that you will have, if you're really working hard, there's energy, there's heat that develops in your body. And it can interact with that first skanda, the form skanda, and you can feel all kinds of funny stuff going on. Don't get attached to it, he would say. It's just a jingjie. It will come, it will go. And what is the Buddha's state? No state. He's been through it all. So don't attach or think you're enlightened, and don't think you're crazy either. Neither one is true. Keep meditating. It's a sign of hard work. So, that's why 100 people try it, maybe not even one, has a teacher who can get you through all the states. Pure Land, man, you're reciting on the bus, you're reciting at the bank, you're reciting in line at the grocery store, you're reciting before you go to bed, you're reciting in the meditation session. It's not as dramatic, it's not as risky, sort of, so to speak, and you don't need as much coaching as you do for Chan. So it's a shame if people get discouraged from meditating, because it's still the door to the dhyanas, which are the door to the Brahma heavens, which is the place where real transformation can happen. The other thing is, when you calm your body and mind to this level, then you hear the sutra, it goes deep. It goes really deep. And this is a platform from which wisdom can truly arise. You have jie, ding, hui, right? The ding is the second part, the samadhi part. Wisdom arises from that. Another clear reason why, Sandy, your question, why don't people just recite the Buddha's name, why go through all that trouble? Because it's too much trouble. Mostly the precept part. People are not willing to live the way old-fashioned people used to live. Not killing, not stealing, not breaking your vows, not lying, not using any intoxicants. Because all 5 of those things damage the stillness of meditation. Right? My story about Howard Swanson, Marty says to the vegetarian cowboy, Howard, you a meat eater? Hell yes, I'm a meat eater, don't eat nothing but. Well, why wouldn't I eat meat? Well, Howard, if you killed a man, would you be able to forget about it? No, I imagine you'd be thinking about that all the time. Well, if you kill a cow, Howard, their hearts are bigger than human hearts, and you stop that heart, and then you go try to meditate, you're going to be all thinking about it. Hell, I never thought of that, said Howard. I'll try it. So that's why people can't. And yet if you have a good teacher, and if you apply yourself and look long, go 5 years, 10 years, you can enter the dhyanas. And all this is not theory, it's your reality. So, this bodhisattva appears as a Brahma king, mostly, Lord of a 1,000-fold realm. He never stops speaking of the Buddha vehicle, the bodhisattva vehicle, and the Shravaka vehicle. In other words, paths to liberation. The illuminations from his light of kindness dispel all delusions. I like that, the kindness line. He gets to this place not because he's tough, not because he's like super sharp. It's because he's kinder than he was before. Kindness comes from within. You open it, and sure enough, that will carry you. It sheds a light, and delusions vanish. I really like that idea, that a cultivator becomes so kind, not so hard. Right? There's a lot of people who kind of feel like the more their meditation works, the edgier they get, and it's just not true. That's not a sign of cultivation. Okay. 一念所获诸三昧百万世界微尘等，诸所作事悉依然，愿力实现复过世。The samadhis you acquire in a single thought are as many as the dust particles in millions of worlds, and the deeds you do are that many as well. If you make it happen through the power of vows, the amount is greater still. So today at the Oakland Unitarian Church on 14th Street, it's been there for 120 some years or more. Probably the same generation as our church here. We heard the ambassador from India to the U.S. was one of the guests. Very well-spoken man, knowledgeable. He was talking about the paths of various yogas, and he mentioned that the Buddhist path, yes, where you aim for samadhi. He said, that's what the Buddhist path wants you to do, is to aim for samadhi. And I thought that was interesting that he picked that out. It's not wrong. And here our Bodhisattva, because of his practice, he has, in a single thought, just a brief instant, because his mind is so tuned, just like I don't have a tuning fork here, but boom, like that. He can now, adjust, 调伏, he can adjust his body so that all these samadhis come through and go. All these different states that have different colors, different vibration rates, different sounds, right? Every sense organ has a different samadhi now. And furthermore, 诸所作事悉依然, the things that this bodhisattva can do from his 8th stage state now are incredible. He is enabled to go out and teach in ways just amazing. And say it again, it's everybody's human nature is fully endowed with these abilities. Every one of us has this stuff coded in, but we just don't add electricity. We don't fire it up, right? Everybody's got this stuff in there. It's in our advanced DNA, but we have to actually, plug it in before it starts to work. So, if you make this happen through the power of vows, you get more of the same effect. Urging someone to be more like the great bodhisattvas, Earth's Treasury, Guan Yin, Manjushri, Samantabhadra, who make these vows that give a kind of a permanence to these. That's not the right word either. It gives more oomph to the abilities we heard about. Okay? 菩萨第八不动地，我为汝等已略说。若欲此地广分别，尽欲异界不能尽。I've now already described for all in the assembly the Bodhisattva's 8th stage, that of unmoving stability. If you wish to know in detail its sequence. After kotis of kalpas, you may still not reach its end. This is Vajra Treasury, who's winding up the teaching of the lore of the 8th stage. He says, yep, that's all. He gives it the name Bodong Di, the stage of no further movement. If you want to know in detail about all this stuff, you won't, he's saying. It's too much. He says, 略说, I've just roughly described in brief. There's more than you could explain if you went through 一劫, right? Many, 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 many eons. Okay, 8th stage. Hey. This is part of the sutra that keeps rolling through. Every stage gets this kind of these, what heaven was he born in? How many samadhis does he get? We didn't hear about how many Buddhas he sees in this one. Usually the others said that because they already came. They came earlier in the stage to help him through the crossroads. Questions or comments? In Singapore, just now, Jin Hosher and I were there, Jin Hosher, Guoji, and Guoju Gokuk. We encountered some really interesting and kind of, I don't know, maybe unique is the word, not obstacles, just challenges arising from my being an American, speaking Chinese as a second language, and the audience, who were Chinese speaking and very grounded, very immersed entirely in Chinese, popular Chinese culture, popular Chinese Buddhist culture. And by and large, there's that one level. There's another level, which is Singapore is a lot like Hong Kong. And I don't know if that makes sense to any of you, but Hong Kong is a commercial capital. Hong Kong is a rock in the South China Sea with the 9 dragons on the mainland and Hong Kong Island, and then there's Lantau Island and lots of other little islands. But then there's 9 dragons, Kowloon, Jiulong, and then new territories. And then there's Shenzhen and there's Guangdong and Guangzhou. But people come to Hong Kong to buy and sell a lot. And they have for long as Hong Kong's been a fragrant harbor. Singapore used to belong, 53 years ago, belonged to Malaysia. It's the bottom of a peninsula, an isthmus. 53 years ago it separated and became way more Chinese than Malaysia, which is largely Malay, which is Islamic and a different, proud and noble culture. But Singapore has a smaller percentage of Malay speaking or Malay ethnic and a very large percentage of Chinese. And the people who are there, by and large, are mercantile class. They sell and they buy, like Hong Kong. They're a different cultural mix. The language is not Cantonese. The language is Fujian, Hokkien, and Mandarin, and Hindu, and lots and lots of little India in Singapore, lots of Indians, and lots of the British overlay is also strong. There was the British legal system, courts, the sense of civic connection, education, British. Fascinating city. But people would say not known for its philosophical, artistic tendencies. If you have a lot of money and you want to live well, go to Singapore. Because in the building where our host has an apartment. You go down to the parking lot down below, and we counted, I think, 8 Rolls Royces, 3 Bentleys, 1 Ferrari that everybody was excited about, 2 Aston Martins, and every one of these cars costs double what it would cost you in Europe or the US, and you pay a registration fee that is almost the amount of the car's purchase price. There's one rich man who lives on the 3rd floor who has 2 matching chocolate brown Rolls Royces next to his Aston Martin. And he's in China more often than he's in Singapore, so we would go downstairs to get where in the car we were traveling in, and his chauffeur was there, and his chauffeur would be flicking dust off the bumper of one of the Rolls Royces and turn them on once a day, because the master's in China. And we talked to him, and fascinating. What is it? Cars like this, how often do you drive them? Oh yeah, we drive. Yeah, every now and then. Yeah, we take them out. Yeah. Turn them on every day. And then he would say, "Have you seen the Ferrari over there?" He was this man who was in charge of maybe $1.5 million worth of automobiles, was interested in the fast car. So this is Singapore, and yet at the same time, it's got a Buddhist heritage from way, way back, and the issues facing me coming in as an American, speaking Dharma, lecturing on sutras, wanting people to connect the traditional, the wisdom of this ancient book with their lives today. Raising questions of, for example, who's the Buddha? How do you react to the Buddha as a male authority figure? It's like, we just say Aumi Tofu Fasher. We don't ask questions like that, Oh, okay. Well, what do you think about the imbalance in gender in Buddhism? Do you think, can women actually accomplish Buddhahood? We don't. We just recite Amitabha Fasher. That's just, we don't think of these questions. So bringing all of our contemporary Northern California approach to Singapore, I had to adjust. I had to really think through what was my expectation, so that what? So that when I was done, these folks would feel like they'd gotten their money's worth, so to speak, right? Because I'm a foreigner in Singapore. I'm an American Buddhist monk. Because of my teacher, they invite me, right? And because I can speak English and stumble through Chinese a little bit. So that's a lot of adjusting to do to get it to where they're interested in what I want to say. And the kind of things that I will say interest them in what Shifu opened to us, particularly the sutras in this case. So the key to it is the monk in charge of the Singapore Buddhist Lodge, 这个新加坡佛教居士林. His name is Heng Sure Fasher. He has been here as the translator for Da'an Fasher, if people recall when Da'an came through. Heng Sure Fasher was his translator. Originally from Anhui province near Zhouhuashan, and went to college in Singapore and also in Sri Lanka, I believe, and speaks English, speaks Cantonese, speaks Mandarin, understands these folks, works with them all the time, and wanted to move them towards the sutras and away from popular Buddhism, which is mostly bye-bye, 中服, and reciting for the Pure Land, or just reciting the Pure Land without knowing why you're going to the Pure Land. He teaches really popular classes on the ABCs of Buddhism. And so he invited me to come and do Avatamsaka stories. That was how this door opened. And so I was speaking in Chinese first, translating a little bit into English, and trying to connect, see whether they were going to get me at all. It's not a given at all. Why would the only person in the room with blue eyes be the speaker? That's funny. So the first night it was kind of, okay, and never mind that the sweet lady who works there adorned my lecture table with beautiful flowers, which completely covered my face. And I said, "That's a lot of flowers on there." She said, "Yeah, aren't they nice?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but," and I thought, well, go ahead, don't upset the apple cart. And then I heard later, "Fasher, we couldn't see you." See half my head under this coating of flowers. So, okay, good. And the audience was trying to decide whether they could understand me. And so I brought out my old monk puppet, and I played the banjo. They sang along, they liked the song. And then the second night, it was a little better, and by the third night, the skillet was hot on the stove, and we were cooking. And we took the flowers off, yeah. And people listened the third night and kind of got. And I was telling stories from the Avatamsaka, and including, we read together, the way we do here. We read the Chinese together, then we read the English together. And I think they kind of tuned their ear to my funky Chinese. And I took these with me. These are my 2 selected storybooks from the 3 Steps, 1 Bow journals while bowing. Master Hua told me, after 3 Steps, 1 Bow returned, he said, "Okay, go through your journals," he said. And here's Shifu's handwriting. "Go through your journals," he said, "and pick out the best stories. Put them there, and they will be what you're going to use the rest of your life as a sutra lecture." I went, "Oh, really, Shifu? Oh, okay, sure." Well, for once I followed instructions, and sure enough, 30 years later, this stuff is fresh for fresh ears, people who haven't heard it. And I found some good things here. This is where Howard Swanson, the vegetarian cowboy, comes here. And I found one here that I wanted to share with you. We were in, here's Howard Swanson. We were in Cambria. Cambria is halfway up Big Sur. You have to have traveled 30 miles from Santa Barbara area, the beginning of Big Sur, to get to Cambria, and then another 20-some miles to get to Carmel. So we were in the laundromat. We'd been splashed with tomato juice and beer. Time to do the robes. And we didn't expect, I didn't talk. And so anytime I went into a public place, it was a little tense because people would approach me. And I couldn't answer. And so we went into the Cambria laundromat, and here was this guy standing there. And he was had his hands in his pockets, and he was slumped against the dryer, and he had obviously been drinking, and he looked bored out of his skull and a little hostile, because, there he was. So he comes up to me, and I'm like, and I had taken off I was wearing my only non-robe garment, which is a work shirt, and my clothes were going to be washed. And so Marty had gone to fill up the water jugs, and I had gone into the laundromat to get the laundry going. This guy goes, "What are you doing that for?" And I'm like, And he goes, "Oh yeah? You don't want to talk to me? What's wrong with me? You don't like me?" You know, I'm going, turn around, kind of go back out, you know, and he's like, this guy is really getting hot. And so Marty is there, he's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, so Marty goes in, and this guy comes right up to him and immediately confronts him. He goes, "Hey, what's with that guy?" And he says, "Oh, he's got a vow of silence." "What for?" "Well, he wants to concentrate." "Oh yeah? That's no big deal." He says, "All that sign language, you might as well talk, you know." Waving his hands around like that. "What kind of monks are you?" Marty says, "Oh, Buddhists." The guy says, "Oh, the Buddha, huh? He's your big god, huh? What's the Buddha?" And Marty goes, "No, he's not a god. He's the best part of you. Inside. The part that's kind and the part that figures stuff out." By this time, I come back in and I was taking notes. So these are the notes that I took. So the guy goes, "Oh yeah? Always doing good, huh? Like that?" And Marty goes, "No, he's the part of you that figures stuff out." "Figures what out?" "Where you came from, where you're going, who you were before you were born," he says. And through this guy's drunken haze, he realizes this is a little more than he bargained for at this point. He's silenced. The guy goes, "You people sure aren't very evangelical, are you?" Marty says, "No. Everybody's got the same questions," he says. "We all want answers sooner or later. No use pushing. It's like fruit on a tree. When it's ripe, it'll fall. Everyone finds answers sooner or later." Now, this tone and these answers totally melts the guy. Right through his defenses. And the guy's like, he's just, all the fight's gone. He goes, "So what are you doing it for?" He says. Straight, right? Marty says, "We're trying to calm things down, cool things off, to end fighting." He says, "For yourselves?" Marty says, "Well, we start there, but we're doing it for everybody. There are too many bad vibes floating around," he said. And the guy, of course, heard that. So the guy just kind of took his clothes and said, "See you later." Walked out. That was the last we saw him. So I went in and I started writing because I said, "Man, I didn't do very well." I was writing a note. I said, I got hot and I had to retreat. And what did you see? And Marty said, I just used the Buddha Dharma. He said, "I straight talk from the heart. It turns enemies back into living beings." This guy was dark, he was sullen, full of fear, and vulnerable. He says he was a lonely man, drinking by himself, sad. The tough guy act was a cover for his fear. People feel defensive when they see our shaved heads and our robes, so they get tough and hard or passive in yin. The people who are most in touch with their pain are the ones who respond that way. They're the ones most ready for the Buddha Dharma. So I said, I really feel bad because I tuned him out as soon as he came on that way. I retreated. I'd given up on him. And Marty said, "Oh, that won't work." He said, "When I was at college in Wisconsin, I worked at a mental hospital. and I was an orderly at a mental hospital. And I remember all those lessons. He said, you have to get right in and deal with people right where they're at. You can't be afraid to get in close. When somebody sees you're not afraid of them, they relax and they feel more secure. If people feel judged or slighted, like you did, it's like you're standing back and you've lost them before any conversation can happen. Number two, he said, what I learned in the hospital is you have to totally ignore pain, like a doctor. You have to tune in to the healthy yang part of every individual. It's there, you can find it. If they're coming at you from their pain, you have to ignore it. Find the positive energy and talk to that. And then the third thing he said was, Buddha Dharma includes everybody inside it. It's true and right. We all feel it. If you talk the Dharma straight, you can find the healthy part in people and talk to wherever that's coming from. Are they pink? Are they blue? Are they green? Are they intellectual? Are they happy? Are they subdued? Talk that Dharma. It's magic, he said. Peace and happiness, kindness, compassion, joy and giving, no fighting, no selfishness. People hear these words deep inside. These words put out fires and really bring more peace into being. And then part of our job of recording was to find the sutra quote or section that came alive on the highway with the people we met. And I remembered Shifu saying before we left, he said, Buddhist disciples may not fight or get angry no matter what. This will be very, very important for Buddhism in America. Buddhists will be known as the ones who don't even get angry. Practice the perfection of patience everywhere, all the time. And I had not. I had not done that. The Avatamsaka said, Xing bu chen hui pu sa yu yi jie zhong sheng heng qi ci xin li yi xin ai min xin huan qi xin he run xin shi shou xin yong she chen hen yuan hai re nao chang si shun xing ren si you yi. The Bodhisattva by nature, this is from the second ground. The Bodhisattva by nature, it never experiences hatred. Towards every living being, the Bodhisattva always experiences thoughts of kindness, benefiting, sympathy, happiness, moistening and harmony, gathering in. He always renounces and composts hateful hatred, chen hui, yuan hai, harm, re nao, affliction. He clings to the mindset of harmonious behavior, service, benefit, and kindness. So, those are the stories that I took to Singapore, along with mostly entering the Dharma realm, mostly the Ganda Vyuha, the chapter 39 of the Avatamsaka. I spent a lot of time explaining Maitreya and Sudana to people who think Maitreya is the fat Buddha and Sudana is the little baby. They're not in the Avatamsaka. Question?
Reading your journals reminded me of what I read a couple weeks ago when I was reading. I picked up one of the Bowing journals books that you and Marty wrote and published, and Michael, my brother, had it laying around nearby, and I opened it, and it was part where it was a quote about how the universe is made from the mind.
The quote about what?
Quote about how everything we see is made from our own mind, and then you asked Master Hua, you asked him, like, so if everything's made from the mind, didn't you, Master Hua, like make me as a student manifest in your mind, or did I make you, Master Hua, like manifest in my mind as my teacher? And then Master Hua said, he answered, whatever you think in your mind is the answer. And then that made me think, like, how do you know if like what we think is true? Like how we see the world and what we perceive it? Like, how do we know if it's like true or not? I don't know.
In that question, you're thinking about it, and you're never going to answer that one, because that's already the second thought. I think Master Hua probably would answer your question just by saying, don't false think about thinking. Just think. You're doing it's a two-step that you're doing. You're wondering whether that first thought is, and as soon as you have that second question, the first thought is gone, and you're never going to be able to step outside of that process to judge it and make it right or wrong.
So like our first thought of what we think we make as it is in our head is like supposedly the right one?
You're asking a judgment again.
Oh.
You're still asking about the thinking process. So the idea is, if anybody grounds themselves in primary virtue, in a heart that is not out there trying to kill, let's use the 6 guidelines. Sherpa would say, if you don't have contention thoughts, greedy thoughts, seeking thoughts, selfish thoughts, benefit thoughts, and dishonest thoughts, trust your first thought. It'll be a good one. Go with it. Don't reflect back on that thought to try to find it, see whether it's a good one. Trust it. Now, if your mind, however, is full of fighting and greed and seeking and selfishness, then that first thought that comes out may be crooked, right?
Is that another way of saying like that's your gut feeling? Whatever you think it is, the answer is like, and you think it's from a gut feeling, is that the same as?
Okay, sometimes, but you have to distinguish that from instinct. There's gut instincts that are not a cultivated mind, right? It's just desire is a gut feeling too. But the idea is when you're involved in the Buddha Dharma, you're putting a method over your body and mind that has produced bodhisattvas and Buddhas and sages. So, congratulations. That's already, most people don't want to do that. Why would you sit on the floor on a Saturday night in this monastery? You know, it's pretty rare. Most people would like to be out partying, right? So, having these thoughts come up while you're listening to the sutra, you got to trust them. You get to know yourself and like yourself. An instinct that, what's the difference between a gut instinct and an intuition? Jinchuan. You better know the difference, and what it's like so subtle. And yet gut instinct can often be nothing but, the snake mind, the reptile mind out there struggling to survive, And yet an intuition can be clear seeing. It's that wordless kind of, right? How would you? Or any related.
Yeah, well, I think you
response.
mean a good. I should just, because you just said what you just said. I do find it makes a lot of help to have it within context. Namely, if this gut instinct is arising in the middle of a party, it's probably not that trustworthy. But if it's coming from a certain amount of stillness, and it kind of, there's a sense of clarity behind it. But it's coming from a lot of movement and excitement and energy. It's not cool and clear, then not saying don't trust it, it's just that's not what the energy to follow, because that's probably not going to lead to, at least we're saying about dhyānas, not lead to the dhyānas.
Okay. So you got a garden. Have you ever gardened? Okay. So nice piece of ground. You do the work. You plow it up. You make the big clods, little clods. You add amendments to it. You water it. Put the seed in. and then you watch. And sometimes what comes up out of the garden is just clearly a weed. And you judge, okay, that's a weed. I don't want that weed in my garden. I'll pull the weed, compost it. But there, that finally is the sprout that I'm waiting for. That's going to be marigolds soon, or that's going to be, green peppers. So you look at it and you go, that's the one I want, but that one not. That's how you garden. Watch your mind the same way. How do you know that's a weed and how do you know that's a marigold? Try your best, Over time, your mind, as you do this, and you go precepts, which is plowing the ground, samadhi, which is the arising of the sprouts that you're trying to grow, wisdom, and then the wisdom blossoms, then you get better and better at it. Pretty soon, like mostly the precept part is just clear. You don't have to think. You know that's proper. So before we get there, you have to like yourself. Move into your mind, Don't expect me or anybody else to be able to say, oh, that's right, that's wrong. You're the expert. That's your garden in there, so grow a really good one. And you get better and better and better at and even still, Sherpa would say an arhat cannot trust his own mind completely. Because there will be things that come out of karma, that was hidden there. The Buddha himself had 3 karmic episodes. So what do you do? I would say again, an arhat doesn't go on instinct. An arhat would apply the 6 guidelines just like everybody. What did our bodhisattva tonight do? The 8th stage bodhisattva is an expert giver, super generous at the 8th stage of bodhisattva. The benefits that come from his giving shine like a king's crown, right? So these basic practices carry you forward, but at that level it's way more subtle than our level, which is pretty crude. Does that make sense? The expression on your face, you look like you're like afraid of your mind. So it's trust it. At some point it's not going to be leading you wrong, over time. Yeah. So we're into Earth Store Bodhisattva time. City of 10,000 Buddhas, Earth Store Bodhisattva session is happening. Earth Treasury. And page 28. I tried to sing this at Buddha Root Farm and forgot the lyrics. Oh, that was embarrassing. Too low. Capoing a 12-string guitar is always iffy. Here we go. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva King of great vows. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva King of great vows. To end her mother's misery was her quest. To end her mother's misery was her quest. Her vows she professed, a filial child so blessed. To end her mother's misery was her quest. Here we go. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva King of great vows. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva King of great vows. He shakes his staff and makes the suffering end. He shakes his staff and makes the suffering end. And then living beings' karma starts the whole thing up again after he shakes his staff and the suffering ends. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, king of great vows. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, king of great vows. Until the hells are empty, he won't rest. Until the hells are empty, he won't rest. Saving those who transgressed is the thing that he does best. Until the hells are empty, he won't rest. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, king of great vows. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, king of great vows. The fires of the hells won't make him move. The fires of the hells won't make him move. So firm are his vows, he'll still there to improve. The fires of the hells won't make him move. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, king of great vows. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, king of great vows. If we had a flute, this is where the flute solo would come in. Then the bass would take it and the fiddle, but we don't. So let's just sing the last verse. It's best to practice patience when you're stressed. It's best to practice patience when you're stressed. King Yama's unimpressed with your screams of protest. It's best to practice patience when you're stressed. Okay, last time, here we go. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, king of great vows. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, king of great vows. Yes. Okay, let us find out what is going on, what in the Dharma realm is going on, and we'll finish with dedication of merit after any announcements. What have we got for things to tell people?
So we just started the last week new semester, so all classes are going. Wednesday, Stephen Taylor class, and 7:30 p.m. We have Thursday night, Berkeley Inside Meditation Community. Friday, Professor Martin Verhoeven is giving the lecture of Sixth Patriarch Sutra. And today in the evening, the Earth Store Sutra will start in the city of 10,000 Buddhas. So tomorrow, if you have interest, we recommended to go to our main monastery, to Ukiah. And all more informations you can find in our website, berkeleymonastery.org. And have this story.
And one more event is starting on September 22nd, which is 2 weeks from now. We will begin the storytelling class with Brian Conroy. The theme is connecting to our roots, kind of stories about family and where we come from. And so Brian's a very accomplished storyteller and teacher of stories. And so we're fortunate to have him teaching 4 classes, September 22nd, 29th, And actually, another announcement is October 6th, we have the opening at the library exhibit in San Francisco Library. And then October 13th, we have the class on October 20th. So it's 4 classes on Saturday from 3:30 to 5 p.m. You can sign up online at berkeleymonastery.org, or you can come talk with myself or any of the monks and just leave your name and email. Earthquake? Oh, the earthquake? I think it's a little...
Yeah, we should. When is that? That's the...
I think September 30th, Tom Brocher will be giving a talk on earthquake safety from 1 to 3 p.m. here at Berkeley Buddhist Monastery. He's, I don't know how to formally describe him. He was the main, I think, seismologist at UC Berkeley, and so probably one of the most knowledgeable people about earthquakes and what we need to do about it. And he's part of our community, so we're very fortunate to have him share his knowledge with us.
Tom is one of our regulars, and he is just retired as as Chin Chuan Shu said, one of the chief seismologists in the Bay Area, which means probably worldwide. Tom is really a good speaker about earthquakes and how to prepare. So he'll be giving a program here in the Buddha Hall for our neighborhood, but everybody's welcome to join. Those brochures that we passed out from the U.S. Geological Survey came from Tom, and Tom Brochure, and that's the 30th of September, which is at what time, day of the week? On Sunday. Yeah, recommended. So, okay, time to transfer merit, and if you don't have any particular focus of your transference, let me tell you that the Benedictine, Camaldolese Benedictine monk, Father Robert Hale, passed away. Father Robert was our close friend here, came multiple times to the monastery. He was the abbot up at Incarnation Monastery here in Berkeley for a long time. He had a stroke and fell and went through some ups and downs, and just the light went out. So the Camaldolese Benedictines, Father Cyprian and everyone they did the funeral for him 2 days ago, and just wanted to mention that. He's a dear soul and a gentle man of God. We'll miss him, and so if anybody would like to transfer merit on behalf of Father Robert, that you can send him to the Pure Land if you want, but chances are he would rather take that merit to the heaven of his choice, right? So. Good man. Okay, so transfer merit. Japan has been going through disasters. India is going through disasters. The fire up in Shasta County now is just growing. Going to be weeks before it's rained in. So, California. Oh, ha. Stop right there. How are we doing? YY 51 going to China. YouTube 57? When it was big. So China beat us in person. There's not 52 people here. So, okay, well done, Sam and Cliff. Nice job there. Okay, here we go. May every living being our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see, our hands and hearts can find in giving unity. May our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, see you all next week. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Namo